Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today we're going to be giving you a right for you, wrong for you review on Earth, which is a prototype game that we have in hand coming from Inside Up Games that is coming to Kickstarter. Now, we've played in every mode except solo mode, which is a mode that I'm going to be diving to here on the channel, so make sure you stay tuned for the gameplay video. This is a 1 to 5 player game that plays in about 45 to 60 minutes, all about tableau building, all about resource generation, and it's sort of like a heavier point salad style game where everything you do is rewarding you and investing itself back into points and economy. The main goal of the game is to build your ecosystem, going for or aiming for a variety of different point scoring objectives, from composting cards to tableau cards to growth tokens that you can see all over our boards, to secret environmental point scoring objectives that are either personal to you or public to the entire group that you're working through collectively or working through depending on who gets there first. We might do a little bit more of an in-depth overview on what the game is, but I do need to acknowledge at the beginning of this video, I am doing a sponsored gameplay with Inside Up Games, so take a bit of what I say with a grain of salt, just full disclosure there. You are a fan of the channel. This is the first time you've came up and visited, so you're incentivized to be as honest as possible, right? Because there's always that caveat, right? You have no buy-in, you have no interest.
I have no horse in the race.
You have no horse in the race.
What about me?
There's no situation where she doesn't just tell the truth. Period. So, with that in mind, let's swing into this. With our format, right for you, wrong for you, we're going to break down 7 categories we consider when deciding if we're going to add a game into our collection. We're going to take a close look at the overview, break down the theme and talk about how it integrates into the actual mechanics of the game, discuss the accessibility, take a analysis of the gameplay, not how to play, but what we like the most and the least about it. Then we're going to take some insights on the modes of play, really examine the innovation, and finally, we're going to have a debate around the price. Now, we actually don't know the price of this game, but we can talk about... It's a Kickstarter. They're going to be deluxe copies. They're going to be retail copies. I'm going to go ahead and throw out price when it comes to this because I just don't have enough information at all on production quality, what they're investing in, how the printing's going, any of that. So with that in mind, let's start with an overview. Shira, you taught us this game originally. Would you like to set up the concept?
So, the game is going to be structured around going in turns. The main player who is taking their turn is going to choose one of the 4 actions and take the primary action, while every other person simultaneously is going to be taking the sub-action. The different actions are planting cards into your tableau and then drawing up some cards, getting dirt, which is the resource to pay for the cards in your tableau, getting these plant markers, which is basically one method of point scoring and getting more dirt, or drawing up a bunch of cards and starting to grow with some of these growth markers on your trees. You rinse and repeat where you're hunting through the deck for the cards that are going to score you the most points with what you have going on in your tableau in combination of what the point scores are on the fauna board and the ecosystem cards that you have in play at the moment. And yeah, I think that's the overview.
Cool.
Yeah, just trailed off there.
I mean, it's everything starts escalating, and there's 2 cool features about this game. First off, the amount of variable elements that are in it, right? Every different type of ecosystem and island card you get create something like 2,000 unique combinations of gameplay with unique objectives that you can go through. And then as you trigger these actions, everyone else gets a residual simultaneous action to play with. So in the 40 minutes that we play, it is 40 minutes with little to no downtime at all across the board.
Almost none.
Almost none. For the overview, in terms of what we've talked about, anything else that you would want, that you as an audience member would want to know about this game before we start breaking down and analyzing it?
I think for me, what drew me in initially was the overview, just the theme of cultivating Earth, and if you're into that kind of a visual thematic experience, it drew me in right away.
So
the other point the other point I wanted to bring up is each of the actions is a color, and so as you're taking and building out your tableau, your actions are getting more complex because you're adding different colored actions in your tableau that are going to capitalize both when you take those colored actions and when other people are triggering those colors. So your actions just get bigger and crazier each time.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a game that has a lot of simultaneous play, tableau building that sort of escalates as you play throughout the course of the game and combines a point salad, everything does everything for you with enough complexity to really focus in on how you make the most out of every turn you take, this is going to be a game that might
be right for you.
Might be right for you. You mentioned theme already, so I'm going to open the floor to you a little bit. Let's talk about the theme of the game and talk about how mechanically it integrates the theme into play. Or doesn't if it falls short anywhere.
No, actually I think it does quite a bit, because each card you're going to have, whether it's a plant, a tree, you've got mushrooms. Like, look at the slime mold right here. You got 3 additional growth, whether it's a plant or a tree, on any of the adjacent plants. This mold is actually encouraging, it would have been very effective if I could have gotten this in the middle and had a bunch of plants and trees around it. And it's on all 8 adjacent tiles. This is full of things like this, where the cards interact with one another in such a thematic way, in which apple trees are going this way. It's just a really amazing, well thought out thematic experience in how you're going to cultivate a terrain.
To me, I was hyper skeptical of this, and one of the pieces of feedback I want to send to them is, first off, the combination of graphic design and art made me initially uninterested in the game, because I don't like clip art. Even though some of the pictures, or actually most of the pictures, are extremely beautiful, the clip art combined with the graphic design made me feel like it maybe wouldn't have as much detail paid as I wanted it. That being said, the little bits of flavor text, the way mechanically every card feels like they sat and thought to themselves, hey, if a volcano was going to spawn here, what would that do to the ecosystem?
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, if the slime fungus is going to be played down, how would it spread? How would it grow? Hey, if you have a giant forest, you're going to score points based off of how many tall deciduous trees you have across your board or your snowy terrain. You're going to score points for how other ecosystems have been impacted. And even on top of that, we look up here to the different objectives we had. Earthworms want a healthy soil compound. You need 15 compost to score that. Yeah. Iguanas want a yellow desert landscape with more arid climates. The ringfisher is looking for, or the kingfisher is looking for a blue environment. And we have the hummingbird who's looking for floral plants, colors in the name. I really think the theme, the elements of the game, from like stacking cubes to growing out your tableau to the way that mechanically everything ties together, is shockingly better than I anticipated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love how, like, as you read through all the events, as you're looking at what the action it does, that's what the text really describes. Like, for a volcanic eruption, although not good for surrounding life, when they happen, they ultimately create fertile lands. So you have to decrease your plant markers,
shrubbery,
but then you get dirt because it is producing then fertile land. Like, every one of these event cards did the exact same thing. It took away, they usually take away something, but then they produce something else. And it's really cool how they tie in so succinctly together.
Yeah, I think that this game, when it comes to this genre of games, is actually one of the most accurate and thematic versions of this game that I've played, and it pulls me back into this. So if you're looking for a highly thematic and well thought out mechanic and earth themed game that really celebrates kind of the biological and ecological world that we're playing in, while giving you some fun flavor text, a little bit of information, and ways that you can mechanically integrate it into skilled play, this game
might be right for you.
But if you're not going to focus on the theme and you're going to look at mechanics over everything across the board, I would say that the combination of theme and mechanics here is really what makes elements of this shine. If that is going to be wrote off for you, it still might not
be right for you.
I'm figuring out how to set her up.
I don't know what you were saying.
We are getting there, and you have to listen to every word precisely.
You were going back and forth over there.
No, not me. Let's talk about accessibility. This is a 1 to 5 player game.
Yeah, why don't you ask the new player, how accessible was it to get up and running?
This was literally my very first gameplay, and we spent about 5 or 6 minutes ahead of time with him explaining some iconography and things of that sort. And of course, like any new game, your first couple minutes you're going, what exactly? But it clicked within very quickly of just taking actions. I went, oh, now I see it. You know, this was an experience that you can get up and running fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I don't consider it myself a heavy game.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, but it's nothing that you're doing is complicated.
I think the application of, now you could pause and you could think and you could read every card, but part of the thing that the rulebook tells you is, because this game is so open-ended, and one of the criticisms you have of it is it feels like everything gives you something, and it comes down to maximizing. I also think that means the accessibility is really good, because I can say, hey, you're going to get 15 cards in your hand in a matter of turns. Like, pick the 3 that you want to go for and the 2 skills you're really aiming at, and you're going to make it somewhere cool. And then come back again and again and have fun with the process. Yep. And the next game you play, like Shira and I experienced, you'll be a little bit more precise. You'll do a little bit better. You'll know what to expect a little bit more. But it didn't stop you from starting. It didn't stop you from being competitive.
And it didn't stop you from having fun.
That's the key. Shira, thoughts around accessibility?
I was the one who did the initial teach, and even reading the rule book, it seemed like it was going to be pretty straightforward, up and running. I taught it in probably 15 to 20 minutes initially, and got everyone up to speed, and it ran pretty smoothly. And the rulebook does recommend playing with a little simpler version where you don't have your own personal ecosystem card and where all the points on the fauna board are actually just 10 straight across so that it's a little bit simpler. We didn't start out with that that. We started with the more complicated version, and it wasn't too much to bite off initially.
Yeah.
So,
we're going to talk about this a little bit in modes of play, I think, as well.
Mechanics.
But not just mechanics, but when it comes to, I found it significantly easier to get someone up and running when you and I knew the game than when we were starting from zero, right? It was like 5 minutes to get you started, about 15 minutes to read and start from nothing. Really
Something else I think actually happens with this and that I experienced is, in the beginning, you just have a couple things. Your tableau's not here. Right now, it looks very complicated and chaotic. But at the beginning, I've only got a couple things that I'm doing off these actions, and it grows organically on Earth, and you end up learning how to activate and use your tableau.
You know what you're expecting.
The game does take you through and kind of holds your hand and doesn't make the actions that you're taking too complicated initially. The actions are going to get a lot more as you trigger all of your yellow abilities, all your blue abilities, all of your red abilities, and all the rainbow abilities on your board, and decide you're triggering them in order, and as you're deciding what action might be good for you that round.
I think still to this point, the most complicated part of the game for me is paying attention to the multitude of scoring objectives I have and deciding what I'm going to compost versus what I'm going to keep.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I get better at in terms of recognizing and quickly seeing, because there's actually a lot of information on every card. And you don't know what you need until you know you need it. Like region and climate, or the type of shrub it is, how much points it scores, how much dirt it costs, the flavor text at the bottom, which everyone should read, the amount of shrubbery or growth tokens that are available that also relate to point scoring, and then finally, of course, the special ability that it has. And knowing where they sequence, how they trigger, and what you're able to just discard is something that I think you get better at as you play.
Now, Shira being the most experienced scored the highest points. Me being the lowest, I scored the fewest, or least experienced, I scored the fewest points. But at the end, I looked at my tableau and I thought, I'm satisfied. I may not have scored the most points, but I felt like my time was enjoyed, and I was very happy with what I built out.
Let's continue talking. So if you're looking for a game that is highly accessible while still having depth to it,
then this game might be right for you.
But if you want something that is pinpoint Euro fashion that really ties you into a really deep mechanic system without the wiggle room that lets you just play,
this game might not be right for you.
It might not be right for you. You see the system that we do here? Have you watched the Right For You, Wrong For You videos before?
I've seen a couple.
Okay, you've seen 2 or 3. I don't know. It's a format that I like. I like the breakdown. So let's talk then about gameplay and not how to play, but specifically our best and worst category, which is something that we mess around with on Quack & Co., which
is not there unless you search for it.
That's true. So let's talk about the best and worst, and I'm going to take a step back and let you two begin the conversation. So in terms of gameplay, what do you like the most? What do you like the least?
What I like about this game is that because you have so much going on and you do want to spend some time to think, the mechanic of everybody is activating their abilities. She's thinking about what she's doing, but I'm not sitting here watching her think. I'm over here doing my thing. And so that keeps the game moving, and it keeps you engaged, and it doesn't give you that opportunity for paralysis analysis to really create silence. There's always something going on, and I'm always thinking about something. And I think that's something that's unique in games.
I like how players can vary in the amount of thought that they put into it. They can either think really deeply and try and min-max every single card, or they can kind of go in with a more carefree attitude and everything is just going to score your points.
I want a giant forest now!
I know. I, in general, like a more tight game, and that's the one area where this game feels lacking for me. I think every single card is going to give you something, and it's going to give you usually something positive, whether you compost it, whether it's going to give you cubes that'll score you points, whether it's going to give you growth markers, which will increase your trees and give you points. Every single card seems to give you more and more and more, while nothing seems too punitive. And I like games that hurt a little bit. I like things to be punishing. I don't want to feel like I can do everything and more. Like at the end, I wasn't triggering, like in our gameplay, if you check it out, I wasn't triggering endgame because there were still opportunities for me to score more points, and that was going to eke me out ahead. And so it was a calculated decision. When I could have ended the game like 3 rounds earlier, they would have been a little bit more squabbling, but I would have been fine. But I was like, no, I'll just get like 18 growth markers each turn and score a bunch more points. And that was where I eked out ahead of you. As we were scoring all of our plant cubes and as we were scoring our trees, I had worked on cultivating that and maxed out on all of those at the end.
And I think if we'd focused a bit more on some of those things, I think this is my theory, but I really like this game, so I'm excited to play it more with you. And I think the better and more time I take creating a challenge for you on the table, like, if you won this game every time we played it going forward, you'd get more and more dissatisfied with it. But the moment we play again and I beat you, you come back being more precise and more frustrated and more purposeful. It doesn't replace the thing that you like the feeling of tension when you're playing. It doesn't fix that.
So this reminds me of the genre of Calico, Cascadia, Verdant, Luna Capital, where you are creating something in front of you and you have scoring objectives that you are aiming for, and every person is kind of doing their own thing, and then you kind of interact with each other a bit at the end. I like the tighter ones of those.
Yeah,
I like Calico. I like Cascadia.
I like the messier ones.
You like the messier, the calming ones. And so that's just a different in style.
Mm-hmm.
If you are looking for something that is more tight and you can inflict more pain on your enemies, then this game might be...
It might be wrong for you.
See, you can't even do it.
I didn't know what she was doing.
This
See, I wasn't
game might not be
prepared
wrong. This game might not be right.
But we're
for
not
you.
done with the segment yet. That's not quite where we are. I want to know what you like the least about this, or the worst part so far.
Well, I could see a criticism, and especially, if you really start caring about, trying to track where everybody's at in points, and if you are really trying to audit other players' turns and make sure everybody's doing it, because there's so much happening, you're not going to be able to do that.
And what I've discovered about you from playing all games all day today, you're a min-max type of player.
I try to be.
You like digging into games and finding out the breakpoints and where things, like, logistically, what combination scores the best, right? And this might not be a game this could be a game that breaks if you do that. I don't know. But it also could be a game where, like, if you're trying to track everyone else's, it's almost too much to keep
I found that while I played this, I was trying to min-max, but I didn't feel such a compulsion. It was just so enjoyable, and there was so much going on. I just had a good time going through the experience.
Yeah. So for me, the stuff I like the most and the stuff I like the least. I do really like the messier versions of those games. Calico, Cascadia, those aren't games that are great for me. They are a little bit too precise, and they feel a little bit too mean when randomness or luck or the draw take something from me. Like, for instance, in this game, if there was a feeling like I had to find one card and I was hunting the deck for that one card, it'd be a bad feeling. It'd be a strike against it for me, but it's not like that because everything gives me something, and it's a matter of using that something to the best of my ability. All 40 minutes while I play, I'm having fun, and everything's cascading and escalating, and I'm building out this beautiful world, and I grab a card, and there was multiple times where I heard her, and I heard you, and I heard me go, oh my gosh, read this. Oh my gosh, look at this. Look at what I could do with the system I've built. That's my favorite part about this, and the reason why I'm really enjoying it. Combined with the fact that the simultaneous play keeps everyone involved in 40 minutes. I need to do a video titled 5 Things Every Game Should Have. And one of those elements, and I don't care how people integrate it, but one of the elements that I find consistently benefits a game for me is the idea of simultaneous play or simultaneous experience. Give me a reward on another player's turn. Make me invested in what they're doing. Whether it's conflict on an area control board, drafting from the tableau, or an ability that allows me to move one space in a dungeon crawl when you take an extra action. Anything that makes me invest in the game throughout the course of play is great, and this is the definition of that. The stuff I like the least. I find that the compost action is underutilized, and I find a lot of the actions in some ways are underutilized. I almost want a version of this game that adds another layer of complexity to it. Have me build out regions where a snowy pocket up here is going to... And there's probably one card that scores for adjacent snowy regions, which arguably would do that.
But, I mean, I had one that scored for all the snow in my...
Yeah. But have me build out more specific tableau effects, or have it matter a little bit more what I put in my compost pile and have it negatively affect. Like, for instance, I would love a little tracker board that is tracking how arid, how wet, different like what's the soil composition
Sunny,
of the compost?
wet, rocky, cold.
What's the soil composition of the compost that I've made, and how does that affect everything else that's growing in the landscape that I have? I think balancing that, and I think actually adding more mechanics might be a bit overwhelming, but it's still something I wish was there, because it does still feel a little loose to me.
I want some more interaction with the compost pile. It seems like it's kind of just a garbage dump for the cards that you're not going to make worthwhile, but it'd be interesting if you could actually start building up a deck that you can go through and pull out cards as you need them. Like, hey, this card might be great later on in the game, but not yet. I don't want it clogging my hand, so I'm going to put it in the compost pile, but I can then go sift through the compost pile and pull out some of the cards that might be beneficial later on.
Yeah, the other than it being a bit wiggly and a bit loose, the biggest barrier for me is still going to be the act of tracking every little piece of information that I have. I do find that halfway through the game, I'll forget that one of my scoring objectives is having dirt in my reserve. And I was so focused on other elements of the game that I missed an opportunity to just score a lot of points at the end game. And part of that comes with experience, but part of that just comes with how open-ended the game is, which is both a lot of fun, but when you try to play strategically, can be a bit frustrating as I try to maximize. And I think there's players that would be so focused on every card they have in their hand, every card they're composting, every action that they could take, that if they're not willing to play messy, would become very AP prone in a game like this.
It could happen. Yeah. Thematically, I mean, Earth in general, just the actual globe,
is a bit messy.
It's a bit messy. It's a bit chaotic, and you can't control everything, and we've been on this planet for thousands of years, and we're still trying to figure it out. I feel like this game thematically does that to me.
Sure.
You know, there's so much more to see and discover and combinations to experience.
Yeah.
I think it's a thematically very accurate game. That compost pile, it is garbage.
I think I want something that's more that you can't place cards next to each other. I want something that's like, this cannot grow in this area. This is restricted. I think having some negative attributes on some of the cards would take this up an additional level. I was thinking about that.
I could see an expansion or a little module deck that adds in regionality. Like your tableau building now has a card over here that adds in adjacency off the side, like scoring for different climates. Like, for instance, whatever this combination is, what if they had this little pattern where, like, the top row is this, the bottom row is that, and together they make a new environment?
Yeah.
Or, like you're saying, a pack of cards that's just the take that mechanic or the negative mechanic, and something that creates havoc, or an event deck that just, you can decide how you spend your resources, but it can wreck some stuff.
Yeah.
Like, a little bit more punchy could make this better for us, but not necessarily better. It might make it worse for a lot of other people. So, whatever we just said, if you're looking for that or not looking for that,
it might be right for you.
Or
it might not be right for you.
It could not be right for you as well. Let's swing down and talk about modes of play. And specifically, there's one element that I haven't really experienced yet that I'll be doing coverage of. So it plays 1 to 5 players.
Yep.
We've played at a variety of player counts. You've played at 3 players so far. What is your preference when it comes to, like, how many players are around the table?
So there's actually 3 modes of play. There's playing... Cooperative, there's solo, and then there's competitive. I have yet to dive into the solo and cooperative mode, which cooperative is usually not my thing.
I think we should do a 2-player cooperative gameplay, though. I'd be curious to see how it changes the deck.
So it's 2v2.
I remember reading that. That's why I thought to myself we probably wouldn't get that done.
Yes.
Which is probably where 4-player and maybe 5-player work best? 4-player works best?
Yeah. I'd have to read into it more. I think when you start getting into higher player counts, it gets too overwhelming, too messy. I think this would probably do better at the 2-3 player count range.
I really like 3-player, and I really like 3-player because almost every action starts being triggered around the board.
Yep.
Whereas in 2-player, I think you might bounce back and forth between, like, your preferred ones, because there's always one that I really like, and then other ones I really like other people taking. And so 3-player gives me that constant interaction, but it brings it back to my turn close enough. 4 and 5 I don't think will be negative. 5 I would do with people who really know the game, and because it keeps you engaged the full time, I wouldn't shy away from that. The cool thing about solo mode, which I'm excited about, is it has an AI card draw deck that's generating actions and points, and you can kind of track what they're scoring versus what you're scoring, and so you're responding at the same time to what they're trying to get, the points they're going after, and how you're building out your own tableau. I'm really excited to play this solo.
Cool.
Thoughts on player count? You don't have too much experience.
Yeah, I don't have any experience in the other way, but I can say just from what you're talking about, I don't think solo mode would necessarily be right for me. For example, Wingspan has got a solo mode. I don't really enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
Probably a good comparison too.
Yes, I do. I do enjoy it with 2 or 3 players, but I don't necessarily. I tried it out solo, and it just wasn't for me.
Cool.
So that might be something that I would prefer. Now, cooperation. I do enjoy cooperative games.
Okay.
This might not tickle that fancy in the sense that it doesn't have that tight thematic experience like you would get out of a Spirit Island.
Sure.
It is that chaotic, so I don't know what it would be like cooperative. I'd be interested, and I would definitely play it. But I liked this competitive arrangement that we had right here.
Cool. So those are the modes to play. If you're looking for a 1 to 5 player game that, as far as we're concerned, plays probably best at 3 or 4 with the option of cooperative play that we haven't experienced and a solo mode that I'm really excited about, but you're a little bit more skeptical on, depending on how you approach your kind of heavy, punchy solo modes. Like, I want the point salad.
Yeah.
This one may or may not be right for you. And with that, let's talk about innovation. And this is always the hardest conversation because it's only based on the information that we already have. Yeah. So the question that I ask, is this innovative? If so, why? If not, does it matter?
You know, I think it's innovative in how the theme is, I think, so well integrated into the gameplay. I don't know that any of the mechanics are necessarily innovative.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter because I still enjoyed the experience.
Yeah.
I would agree with less importance on the theme. I think each individual game mechanic is not innovative at all, but the combination of choosing an action, every player benefiting, having the actions get better and better, building a tableau, different point salad scoring, I think the whole entire combination does do something a little unique, but I don't think it matters, honestly. I think it's doing something good.
I am not directly sure if this is innovative. I would agree that every module in here feels familiar and doesn't feel directly innovative. The thing I would say stands out to me as unique in my collection, at least, is that I think this might be one of, if not the best, simultaneous play games I have.
Yeah.
Now, there are other games that are competing with that. And so I would have to go through the list and think through which ones are actually simultaneous play, which ones feel like it, which ones have but the amount of crazy escalating actions that you have while everyone's fully involved in the game board, I think stands out for me. If I want an experience like that, this is going to be in the top 3 that I'm pulling off the shelf. So if you're looking for something that is not necessarily innovative, but highlights a bunch of mechanics in a way that might feel new, might be the best version of simultaneous play possible, and at the end of the day is just
fun.
A lot of fun. This one might be right for you. And the final thing that we would normally talk about would be the price point, which we're going to skip. But I'm open to, if you guys want to, do we want to discuss a rating system?
No.
Take a look at it? Leave it because it's a prototype?
Yep, leave it for a prototype.
Cool. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. We are going to have a ton of additional content on this game. But we got done playing. We've played a few times, sat down and read the rule book, and collectively we thought we'd sit down and give it a review. Any final thoughts you have? I'm going to make him uncomfortable again. I'm going to take a step back. I'm talking enough. I'll let you close the video. Anything you want to say? And then
anything I want to say at all?
Anything at all. And you could be like, don't back the Kickstarter.
No.
And I would just leave it in.
No, I'm definitely... I would say that for me personally, I will be looking at price point, and that'll probably be a decider as to whether I back it. But regardless, I did enjoy the experience thoroughly, and regardless of how it might change and how the card art or mechanics might change between now and then, what's important right now is that you just get out and play some games.
That's true. We'll see you next time.